The daylight shone brightly over Asgard, reflecting off the golden walls of the great hall of Valhalla. Thor, the god of thunder, stood with a serious expression as he gazed out the window. Beside him, Loki, the god of mischief, gestured animatedly, as if trying to lighten the mood of the conversation. "You don't understand, Thor. Mjölnir isn't just a weapon. It's the very essence of who you are," Loki exclaimed, his eyes sparkling with a mix of excitement and mischief. "I know that, Loki," Thor replied, crossing his arms. "Without Mjölnir, the protection of the gods and mortals is compromised. We must always be ready for battle." Suddenly, a sinister shadow began to spread across the sky, obscuring the sun's brightness and creating a palpable tension in the air. The two gods exchanged worried glances as anxiety grew on their faces. "What's happening?" Loki murmured, his voice now lower, almost a whisper. "I don't know, but it's not a good sign," Thor answered, his voice steady, though his gaze betrayed his unease. The darkness enveloped Asgard in a shroud of mystery, and within moments, the great hall was invaded by a group of alarmed gods. Heimdall, the guardian of Bifrost, appeared, his face pale as if he had seen a ghost. "Mjölnir has been stolen," he announced, his voice echoing through the hall. "Thrym, the king of the giants, is responsible for this." Heimdall's words hit the assembled gods like thunder. Thor felt fury rise within him, his heart pounding fiercely. "That audacious giant," he thundered, clenching his fists. "He doesn't know who he's dealing with." Loki, always the schemer, grinned mischievously, though a glint of concern shone in his eyes. "And what does he want in return? If he wants anything at all?" Before Heimdall could respond, a nebulous vision began to take shape before them. Thrym appeared, shrouded in shadows, like a menacing specter. "If you wish to have Mjölnir back, bring me the goddess Freya as my bride." His voice resonated, reverberating against the hall's walls. Thor felt rage boil within him, his expression turning fierce. "You will not have Freya. I vow I will retrieve Mjölnir, no matter the cost," Thor declared, determination shining in his eyes, reflecting the storm brewing inside him. The darkness began to dissipate, but the tension in the air remained palpable. The fate of Asgard was at stake, and Thrym's challenge only fueled the fire of the battle ahead. Thor gazed at his reflection in the mirror, seeing a delicate visage that looked nothing like the god of strength he was. Long golden braids, decorated with small flowers, cascaded over his shoulders, while a blue and silver dress fitted his robust form in an unusual way. He frowned, clearly uncomfortable. "I still can't believe I'm doing this," Thor said, his voice heavy with indignation. "Disguising myself as Freya? It's an affront." Loki, standing beside him, laughed, a mix of amusement and mischief on his face. "Be a bit more grateful, brother. Without me, you'd just be at home sulking over your hammer. Now you have the chance to retrieve it and teach Thrym a lesson." Thor's irritation deepened. "A lesson? I'm not here to teach anyone. I'm here because you dragged me into this mess." "Oh, but you're secretly loving the idea of pulling off a masterstroke against the giants. Think of it as an epic plan. Besides, you'll do better than you think. Just stay focused and remember that Freya is a goddess of great power," Loki replied, winking. As the gods adjusted the final details of the disguise, Thor tried to ignore the growing insecurity within him. What if Thrym discovers the truth? What if he exposes me? I don't know how to act like a goddess. Yes, and what if he doesn't discover? What if you win his trust? You can be a powerful goddess, Thor. Just remember, smiles and kindness. Charm him with your feminine qualities. Loki teased, laughing even more. Thor rolled his eyes, but the thought of reclaiming Mjölnir was a strong motivator. "Fine, just tell me what to do. Start practicing your seductive look. You may be the god of war, but today you'll be the goddess of seduction," Loki said with a cheeky grin. With one last resigned sigh, Thor squared his shoulders, ready to face whatever Jotunheim had to offer, even if the path ahead was fraught with unexpected challenges. He knew the adventure was just beginning, and despite everything, He had Loki by his side, an unexpected ally in such an unusual situation. "Let's get going before I change my mind," Thor said, taking the lead as Loki followed, still chuckling at the situation. The journey to Jotunheim awaited, and the fate of Mjölnir rested in their hands. Thor and Loki finally arrived in Jotunheim, the realm of the giants, after a journey filled with tension and anticipation. Upon crossing the threshold of Thrym's Great Hall, they were greeted with a dazzling spectacle of lights and sounds. The table was laden with a feast Thor had never imagined. Enormous roasted meats, shimmering fish, vibrantly colored fruits, and overflowing mugs of mead. The intoxicating aroma of the food hung in the air, and Thor, disguised as Freya, felt his stomach growl. "Freya, my beautiful, come sit," exclaimed Thrym with a broad smile revealing sharp teeth. "I have prepared a banquet worthy of a goddess." Thor, trying to maintain composure, replied in a sweet voice, "Thank you, great Thrym. I am eager to taste your delights." But inside, the god felt like a fraud, struggling against the instincts of a warrior accustomed to battles, not banquets. As the feast progressed, Thor began to loosen up. The dishes were irresistible, and he found himself devouring generous portions of each delicacy. The sweet and strong mead flowed down his throat, and soon Thor's head was spinning. Loki, watching his friend, tried to intervene. "Be careful, Thor. Don't forget your disguise," whispered Loki, a worried expression on his face. "Oh, leave me alone, Loki. This is all delicious," Thor replied, his eyes shining. However, laughter and joy soon turned into rising tension. Thrym began to scrutinize Freya with a piercing gaze, and Thor, unaware, let out a loud laugh that echoed through the hall. "You seem a bit different, my goddess," Thrym said, his tone laced with doubt as he filled his own cup. "Normally, Freya doesn't eat so much." Thor, now intoxicated, attempted to disguise his behavior. "I am a woman of great appetites, Thrym. That's why you chose me, isn't it?" His voice came out louder than intended, and the room fell into an uncomfortable silence. "Yes, but Freya is known for her grace," Thrym replied, frowning. "You seem rather voracious." Loki, sensing the impending danger, quickly approached the giant. "Oh, Thrym, you know how goddesses are. Sometimes we have to eat to maintain our beauty." The god of mischief tried to divert attention. "Beauty? Ha!" Thrym laughed, but his suspicion grew. "Tell me, Freya, what do you think of my realm? Do you not miss Asgard?" Thor, now in a state of confusion, began to talk more than he should have. "Asgard? It's a beautiful place, but Jotunheim has its peculiarities, like this food and this mead." He raised his mug defiantly, while Loki took a deep breath, bracing for the storm ahead. The atmosphere thickened, and Thrym's gaze hardened. "Peculiarities? Shouldn't you be more enchanted by the hospitality of a giant king?" He leaned forward, suspicion etched on his face. The feast, which had once felt like a celebration, was now turning into a minefield of secrets and tensions. Thrym, with a sinister smile, lifted Mjölnir, now adorned with flowers and ribbons, and placed it in the hands of Freya. The banquet hall, filled with giants, fell silent as the tension mounted. "With this gift, I seal our marriage, Freya," Thrym declared, his eyes gleaming with satisfaction. "May the power of Mjölnir unite us forever." Thor, in disguise, felt the weight of the hammer in his hands. The pulsing energy of Mjölnir was unmistakable and familiar, like a call from the heart. He looked at Loki, who stood beside him, nervous and restless, and realized that this was his chance to turn the situation around. But panic began to seize him. "What do I do now?" he thought, as Thrym's gaze intensified. "Calm down, Thor," whispered Loki, trying to convey encouragement. "Just wait for the right moment." But the expectation was palpable, and Thor felt his disguise was about to unravel under the pressure. Thrym began to approach, his heavy footsteps echoing through the hall. "Come, my bride, let us celebrate our union." He extended his hand, and Thor's expression hardened. The presence of the hammer in his hands was a reminder of his true identity, and determination began to swell within him. Thrym, he shouted, his voice resonating with authority as he prepared to reveal his true form. You have forgotten who stands before you. In a swift movement, he raised Mjölnir, feeling the strength of its power flow through his body. The hammer's glow illuminated the hall, and all the giants turned surprised. You are about to meet the real Freya, Thor exclaimed, his voice now powerful and charged with energy. He could no longer hide. The atmosphere grew tense, and the joy of the banquet turned into chaos as Thrym recoiled in shock. No, this can't be, Thrym shouted, his eyes wide with disbelief. You are not Freya. You are Thor, the god of thunder. He began to back away, but it was too late. Thor was ready to fight, and the impending battle promised to be intense and full of twists. You stole what is mine, and now you will pay for it, declared Thor, gripping his hammer tightly as Loki prepared to join him, a mischievous grin spreading across his face. The hall was about to transform into a battlefield, and the true fight for the fate of Asgard was just beginning. With Mjölnir in hand, Thor's expression radiated a mix of fury and determination. He lifted the hammer, which shone brightly under the oppressive light of Jotunheim, and a battle roar echoed from his throat. The imposing presence of the thunder god made the giants recoil, nervous. Without wasting time, Thor swung his hammer down, creating a shockwave that knocked the nearest giants off their feet. By Odin, you will regret challenging the gods, Thor shouted, his eyes blazing like lightning. Each blow of Mjölnir was a testament to his strength, and the once arrogant giants began to realize the gravity of the situation. Meanwhile, Loki, with a cheeky grin, tried to join the fight. Thor, my friend, let me help, he said, casting a spell intended to paralyze the enemies. However, he was distracted by a platter of delicacies left behind by a giant. As he attempted to grab a piece of meat, he slipped and, in a clumsy move, sent the food flying towards a group of giants, who exchanged bewildered glances. Oh no, Loki! Focus! Thor yelled, laughing despite the tension. The scene was comical, but the danger was real. Loki quickly got back on his feet, rushing to join Thor, but not without knocking over a wooden table that toppled onto two giants, who swayed their heads in confusion. I always knew you were a disaster, but now is not the time for this, Thor exclaimed, dodging a strike from an approaching giant. We need to finish this before Thrym brings in more reinforcements. The battle intensified, and the giants began to organize. Thor and Loki fought side by side, but with every moment, Thrym's suspicion grew. What have you done, Loki? Thor asked, his expression serious. I just got distracted. Now come on. We need to defeat them, Loki replied, conjuring a distraction spell that made a group of giants turn in the opposite direction. With a fierce cry, Thor delivered a final blow to a giant, who fell heavily to the ground. That's it. Let's finish them off, Loki. He raised Mjölnir once more, but Thrym's expression, watching the battle unfold, changed. The king of the giants had a greater plan in mind, and a shadow formed behind him, putting both gods on alert. You think you've won? The real test is yet to come, Thrym proclaimed, his voice echoing as the winds of Jotunheim began to shift. As the dust of battle began to settle, Thor realized that the situation had taken an unexpected turn. Thrym, who had seemed like an ordinary giant before, now radiated a devastating aura of power. His body twisted and expanded, while a deep, echoing laughter resonated through the grand hall. Did you really think I was just a king of giants? I am much more than that, he declared, his voice reverberating like thunder. Thor, still holding Mjölnir, looked at Loki, who seemed just as surprised. Loki, what's happening? Thor shouted, trying to keep his focus on the adversary. Did you know he was more powerful? Loki, recovering from the shock, quickly replied, I had no idea. Thrym has always been an agent of chaos, but I didn't think he would reveal himself like this. We need to join forces, Thor. With a nod, Thor agreed. All right, then let's end this once and for all. Together, they charged toward Thrym, who now loomed like a living mountain, his eyes glowing like flames. "You think you can defeat me? I am the will of Loki manifested," Thrym bellowed, raising an enormous hand that shimmered in a golden light. "Prepare to feel the true power of the giants." Thor and Loki, side by side, raised Mjölnir in a synchronized movement. "For Asgard," Thor shouted as a colossal bolt of lightning shot toward Thrym. The impact was devastating, but the giants stood tall, laughing. "Is that all you've got?" Loki, realizing the battle would not be easy, whispered to Thor, "We need a strategy. He's strong, but he has a weakness. Let's lure him into the light of the magical crystal embedded in his armor. If we can break him, he will lose his powers." "Understood," Thor replied, his face set with determination. With a war cry, he charged at Thrym, delivering swift and precise strikes while Loki moved behind, trying to divert the giant's attention. The battle intensified, but the resolve of Thor and Loki prevailed. With one final, powerful blow, Thor landed a direct hit on the crystal pulsing at the center of Thrym's armor. The crystal shattered in an explosion of light, causing the giant to cry out in pain before collapsing, trapped in a new magical crystal that emanated a calm and controlled energy. With victory finally within reach, Thor turned to Loki, smiling. "We did it, but what do we do now with Thrym?" Loki, still catching his breath, looked at the imprisoned giant. He could be a source of power if used correctly, but for now, it's best to leave him here, away from everyone. As they prepared to return to Asgard, a figure appeared in the distance. Freya, observing the scene, smiled. "I knew you would succeed. What you didn't realize is that I also had a plan to help." Thor and Loki exchanged surprised glances. "You knew everything?" Thor asked. Freya simply smiled enigmatically. "True friendship and trust are the greatest strengths we can have. And now, together, you can face any challenge the future brings." With that, the trio set off for Asgard, aware that new adventures awaited them, but now united by bonds stronger than ever.